Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to discuss using a virtual whiteboard, which I think is a great thing to do when tutoring online. I think it's important for students to not only hear new words, but also see them, see how they're spelled, and to read, be able to read them in sentences and so on. So using a virtual whiteboard is a good way to accomplish that and kind of recreate the experience of writing on a whiteboard in person. A virtual whiteboard is one aspect of screen sharing. I already made a video about screen sharing in general, so I would suggest that you watch that first if you're unfamiliar with, with that process. In this one, we're going to focus just on whiteboards. So here I am in a Zoom meeting, and I'm going to click on Share Screen, the green button, and I'm going to select the second option here, which is Whiteboard. This is the built-in Zoom whiteboard. This is a good option. I know some volunteers have been using it with success. But there are some other options that I will explain a little bit later that I think have some advantages. But I would say that if you like this option and it's easy for you, then by all means keep using it. So I'm going to click on the share button to select that option, and it brings up this white box, the whiteboard. Here I can write text, I can draw lines, I can do a few different things. I think the most useful thing would be to add text so that I can write words or sentences for my student to see. To do that, I would click on the text button, which has the letter T on the toolbar here, and then I would click on the white area to start writing something. It creates a little box for me to start writing, like this. So I can write whatever might come up in the course of my lesson. And if I want to add more sentences, I can either, press the return button on my keyboard, or I can just click elsewhere on the whiteboard to put another sentence. If I want to make the text a different size, I would click on the format button on the toolbar. In this case, the size is already the maximum, but it might be smaller when you first do it on your computer. So you can change it to a different font size. You can also change the color. You can make the text bold or italicized as well. Those are the options for formatting. In addition, you can click on the draw button. That will allow you to draw lines, for circling or underlining things. The select button will allow you to click and drag something to move it around on the whiteboard. I don't know how useful you would find the stamp or spotlight options, but you can play around with those. Spotlight is kind of like adding a laser pointer to call attention to something. It's also possible to erase a specific drawing or a specific word. You can press the clear button to erase everything on the screen, and you can also undo something that you've done by mistake. So those are the basic options on the Zoom whiteboard. I would suggest that you play around with it, and this applies to any Zoom feature. You can set up a Zoom meeting or launch a Zoom meeting just for yourself, even if no one else is in it, and test things out to your heart's content. And I think that's a great idea for those who are not very familiar with the features. And the last thing I'll say about this is that you can save what's on the whiteboard. You can save it as a PDF or something called a PNG file, which is similar to a JPEG picture file. And it's also possible to set up Zoom so that your whiteboard gets saved automatically. So that's a bit about the Zoom whiteboard. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing there. And now I'm going to discuss a second option for using a virtual whiteboard, which is a word processing program. For many people, that would be Microsoft Word. However, I'm using a Mac right now, and I like to use the built-in Mac word processor, which is called Pages. It's the same basic idea as Microsoft Word. In this case, I have a blank document. I've already zoomed in and adjusted the font size, which I think is a good idea so that students can see what's on the screen more easily. I usually make the font size 25 or 30 point, and I zoom in as well. It should be easy for a student, even using a phone, to see what's on the screen. So I like to use a word processor like this. One reason is that it has more options for formatting. For example, if the student makes a sentence that is incorrect, for example, the student says, I have 30 years instead of I am 30 years old, I like to be able to show that something is incorrect by striking through, which puts a line through the sentence or the word. And well, that's just something that I like to do. Also, with a word processor like this, you have more options for things like changing the color of a word or sentence, like that. You can bold and italicize just like on the Zoom whiteboard. You can underline as well. So I would suggest taking advantage of those formatting options when you're using a program like this. The advantage of using a document is that you can use the same document for every tutoring session. That way you can easily refer back to what you discussed or taught in a previous tutoring session. And I think that's very helpful sometimes. If you were using the Zoom whiteboard, it would be possible to refer back, but it would be more cumbersome because everything would get saved in a separate file. But in this case, it's all one file. Okay, so I think this is a good option to consider. And there are some other things you can do with a word processor, like changing the font, which I won't get into right now. So yeah, that's the second option. The last option that I'm going to go over today is similar in some ways, but it does have some advantages, and that is using a Google Doc. Okay, a Google Doc is an online word processor that you can access if you have a Google account, which for most people is a Gmail account, which you can get for free. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to go to Google Chrome. And there are a few ways that you can create a blank Google Doc. One way would be going to docs.google.com and then selecting the blank option. That opens up this blank document. Okay. So again, I'm going to zoom in and change the font size to make it easier for others to see. And one thing that I'll point out here that I didn't in the previous example is the ability to highlight words, which is, I guess, ultimately not that different from underlining or italicizing. It's just a different way to call attention to something. For example, if I write the sentence, I am 30 years old, I want to highlight that. Oops, that's actually changing the font color. Highlighting would be this one. That's something you can do easily in Google Docs. And then with Google Docs, there are some additional features that I want to point out. I could do a whole video just about this or a whole workshop just about this. So this is kind of focusing on a few key points. One thing you can do is add a picture to the document or pull up a picture easily. For example, if you wanted to, if you're talking about sports and you wanted to pull up a picture of the word soccer, one thing you could do is right-click on the word and select the Explore option. That pulls up a sidebar where you can find a number of pictures that would be relevant to help explain the vocabulary. You can also insert those pictures into the document. Another option is to click on the Insert button in the top, on the toolbar at the top, and select Image, then search the web, and you can just search for the word that way, and you can insert it, or you can click and drag to get the photo into the document. So that's a nice way to kind of illustrate vocabulary terms that your student may be unfamiliar with. Soccer is probably a word that most students would know, but there are many words that you might want to illustrate in that way. Another possibility within Google Docs is having your student contribute to the document or collaborate on the document. You can share the document with the student by clicking on the Share button in the top right, and then enter the student's email address or copy the link and then email it more manually. That would enable the student to write in the document whatever you might want the student to write. And there are all sorts of possibilities. You could have your student write a paragraph for you to correct, or whatever it might be. And so I think this is something that's easier to do in a Google Doc than with those other options. If you tried to do this with Microsoft Word, it would be more cumbersome because you would have to send the document to the student and they'd have to send it back. A Google Doc is easier because it's always updated and it lives online. So anyone with the link can access it anytime. So as I said, there are many features that I could get into. I'd be happy to record another video or explain any of these things in more detail if you have questions about Google Docs or the other options that we discussed. So just let me know, and I hope that this video was helpful. Thanks for watching.